Welcome to another episode of Moving Forward Talk with Diana. This platform is open to discuss various topics with the goal of influencing others to become proactive and shape their future without putting limitation on their capability to do so. This evening we have Mr. Mr. Warren Hardy. Welcome, Mr. Hardy. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hardy grew up with multiple obstacles in front of him and was able to overcome those obstacles through principles, morals, and coping skills. Share with us, Mr. Warren, a bit about the environment you were in growing up.
Well, thank you again for having me. I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut. Connecticut, small, not a very big state, but in Hartford, Hartford is the capital city, and the city is divided like north and south, and I kind of like grew up on the north end. I grew up with my two sisters and my mom. At that particular time, I do have a younger sister that came into the picture much later. But at that time, I would say my issues started probably like when I was about 12 years old. I found out that my mom, and my dad had a drug problem, and their drug problem became my drug problem. I didn't do the drug that they did, but I was affected by, the drugs that they did in regards to coming home to no food, no clean clothes. People was, my mom and, other people would be stealing our things. So it was kind of like tough. And one of the things that made it really difficult for me to kind of like process is that prior to that, up until the age of 12, my mother used to spoil me to death. I mean, like I had two other sisters, and she, really showed favoritism to me to the point to where, like, me and my sister didn't get along to that degree, because my mother was not ashamed of letting my other two sisters know, because I was the youngest at the time, that I was her baby. So it was like, anything I wanted, I always had. Went places. It was all the love was there. But then at the age of 12, found out that she had a drug problem, her and my dad. And it was like the same person that used to love me and care for me and was always there for me. It was like she was a different person. She went to lying, stealing. We would get into arguments, never a fist fight, but we would get into arguments on a regular basis. My house was the block, right? My house was like the trap house, like the drug house. At any time of the day, you can come to my house and there's 10, 15, God knows how many people there buying drugs, trying to recover from drugs. Me personally, as a young person going to school, I didn't go to school to learn. I went to school because school was safer than my house. Like I said, my house was the block. So in my house, you could get shot, you can get robbed, you can go to jail. It was just a nightmare that never ended. It never ended until, I ended up going to prison and figuring out that, I need to do something for myself, regardless of mom, regardless of my dad. I have to figure out how am I going to get myself out this situation. And when I first went to jail, they was offering me about 21 years in prison, and getting sentenced to 12 years to prison.
So listening to you then, the environment in which you were raised, I would say, led to your behavior.
I would say that definitely played a role, because this was around the time when crack cocaine, in the late 80s and early 90s, when cocaine really hit, not just my community, but, pretty much everybody in the United States. So that was definitely the contributing factor that, you know what I'm saying, like I said, my mother and dad were both on that particular drug, which affected me. Again, like I said, coming home to no food in the refrigerator, no clean clothes. It was a tough time. It was a tough time at that particular time in my life.
So at that time, after being sentenced, at what point did you feel as though you must make a change, a positive change?
Well, when I went to prison, I went in gang affiliated. So I was already under restrictions as it was. I was locked up for 23 hours a day, in 15 minutes. I had a 15-minute phone call, a 15-minute shower, and like a 15-minute rec, which consisted of probably like walking, 10 feet in one direction and 10 feet in the other direction. And that was, so I was locked down for the majority of the time. So it took a lot of, I cried. I did a lot of thinking, a lot of blaming, but none of that stuff worked. So at the end of the day, I started to look at myself and realize that I could either turn into like a savage, which is funny because, we tend to think that is cool, and it, what I'm saying, gives us this certain swag or certain kind of toughness. But I could have turned into a savage, because when I went there, I ended up kicking the door off the hinges in prison, and that got me sent to segregation,
Mm-hmm.
and in seg, I was down there. It was crazy. It was a guy next to me who was trying to hang himself because he had been down there for too long. Literally, like he was ripping the sheets to, really to kind of hang himself. And then I had another person who was across from me who had down there so long that he was a savage. He was a savage. So I was stuck in between a hard place and a rock, in a hard spot, because I was like, I wasn't about to kill myself, but the only other alternative was to be a savage.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, I ended up getting out of SEG early. The day, because my goal was to cause a riot. Me and the individual that was across from me. Once the doors opened, at this particular time, we were going to just go crazy, because we both felt like we were down there unjustly. So again, I ended up getting out of SEG early, like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. I ended up going to talk to the captain, and the captain was like, I see this is your first time. Do you know why you down here? Just asking me all kind of questions. And he was like, I want to send you back upstairs, where I was already being locked up 23 hours a day, but it was better than being in SEG at the same time. So long story short, again, I ended up, a person brought me a cigarette. This is what really kind of like gave me a little bit of a second to think and really kind of like realize what I was about to do and what I was moving forward. A person brought me a cigarette, and it was like the smallest piece of a cigarette, a piece. We had matches back then. It was a piece of a striker and a match head, and it was like all a one-shot deal. Like, what I'm saying, you gonna light it and calm down, or you ain't gonna calm down, and who knows where you're gonna end up after that. I ended up getting it to work, and after that, what I'm saying, like, again, after I calmed down for that moment, and then I ended up speaking to the captain, and then I ended up back, what I'm saying, locked up. And from that point on, I decided that no one owes me anything.
Right.
And even though I was blaming my mother, my father, my conditions, the reality was that I needed to get out. How I got there was irrelevant. How I was going to get out was more important. So I started to take advantage of every opportunity to build myself, what I'm saying, in regards to principles and morals. And I said to myself, I never wanted to sell drugs again. I had went to jail for, being a part of a gang and selling drugs. I never wanted to do that because to anyone else, because I knew what that was like growing up. So my
Right.
principle was that I'm going to develop a principle that never allows me to sell drugs. I don't care how hungry, how broke, how desperate I get. Selling drugs would never ever be a means to making money or survive. So once I started to develop these certain principles, then I kind of like had no choice but to put that energy into other things that will help me to get out and stay out. And so once I developed that principle about not selling drugs, there was no longer a need, a want, a desire, anything else. And then having come from parents on drugs and knowing what that feels like, I didn't want to deal with that on the other end as well.
Okay. So you're in prison, you set your principles and morals. Now, there had to be a transitioning process. How was that transitioning process?
That transitioning process came over time because during the transition process, I wasn't sentenced yet. So it took a while for me to get sentenced. So I was still unaware of actually how much time I was going to get. So that was a process in itself, but I still was hopeful because once I came out of the hole, which was segregation, I didn't want to go backwards. So I just, started to do a lot of self-evaluation and start, just trying to find life in there. Anything that was going to give me life, and or anything that I could give life to. Once I found my purpose and I realized that I can actually help people, which is what I really wanted to do, that became, my platform for me to stand on. And I began to start helping other people with their issues. And at the same time, still, because again, it took about, I want to say about 3 months before we actually got sentenced. So that was a long 3 months because I didn't know how much time I was going to get. So during that 3-month time, it was like day to day, just doing whatever I can do to keep my spirits up. And then once I realized that the more I blamed my mom, the more I blamed my dad, I had the negative attitude of I don't care about nobody and nothing. And that wasn't helpful because that's how I got there in the first place. So that was the transition period, like I said, and the transition period continued. So I made up my mind that I wasn't going to do negative while I was in there. But at the time, I still didn't know when I was getting out or if I was getting out, because to this day, I still battle with anger. I still battle with, in the past that I've turned into stepping stone, but at the same time, I still can get triggered. So being in prison, you just hope that you don't get triggered, to where you end up getting more time on top of the time that you already have.
So you have served your time and upon release, coming back, did you return to the same environment as in the same location, hometown, or were you able to relocate somewhere else?
Nope, I went right back to where it all started. Because I wasn't afraid, because again, I had the principles. I ended up doing 6 years off of the 12 years that I ended up serving 6 and getting out, and went to a halfway house, and I ended up doing more time in there. But I developed some really strong, my principles and my morals were solid, and I had coping skills. So I came back looking to, repair some of the damage that I had caused because I was a victim, right? So I sold a lot of drugs. I did a lot of negative things that trickled down to the younger people around me. So my goal was to get out here and try to let people know, hey, I was wrong. you know what I'm saying, I know I made a lot of negative things look good, but I'm here to tell you that I was wrong, and I apologize. And because I know times haven't gotten a whole lot better since then, so now I want to be there for that person who's going through similar things that I was and to try to help them navigate that same obstacle.
And since you've been released, I know you have started some movement within different communities. Can you share some of those movements?
Well, since my release, I ended up, again, when I first got out, it was kind of tough for me to get a job because, you know, of my history. So I was volunteering for about 3 years. And then once people seen that I was like, you know, whether I get a job or not, I'm still going to be here helping out, doing whatever it is I can, working with the youth. Once they seen that, then they gave me a chance, and I haven't looked back since then. The first organization that gave me a job was an organization called Hartford Communities That Care. And that job pretty much description was to build relationships with these young people that are high risk or at risk or whatever you want to call them. Build relationships with them and try to get to the why they're carrying a gun, why they're shooting people, why they're in a gang, you know, why they're not going to school, why they're, you know, dealing with the negative behavior. So that was that was me. So it was like my dream job. And then that job was under a contract. So once that contract ended, I kind of felt like I was left high and dry a little bit. So I decided to my own organization, which is HYPE, which stands for Helping Young People Evolve.
Right.
And HYPE deals with pretty much the same elements, which is building relationships, not just with youth though, but with their parents, with their grandparents, with the small businesses in the area. Just building relationships with the community as a whole, trying to unite us as one so that we could all be that village that it's going to take to, you know what I'm saying, help that one person. So that's what HYPE does. I do cookouts in the summertime in the areas of the city that are have a lot of drugs, a lot of violence, and I'm there to build relationships with these young people. I give out free hot dogs and hamburgers for about, you know what I'm saying, 4 or 5 hours, and I'm doing it. I'm at the stage right now to it in 4 different locations of my city at the same time. And what I'm doing at the same time is to prevent most times individuals that have a problem with conflict or beef. They would use the fact that, you know, there's a cookout going on or they're engaged, so let's catch them slipping. We can catch them while they're not paying attention. So I engage all parties at the same time so no one will feel the need to try to catch the other person off guard or try to retaliate or, you know, finish some kind of beef that they started from the beginning.
So since starting your nonprofit organization and working within your communities to improve our young people's focus, have you seen any progress in modifying their negative behaviors?
Oh, definitely.
Right.
I view this as a life and death situation. So I use whatever it is that I gotta use in an attempt to build the relationship with them. It doesn't mean that they're not going to get arrested or they're not going to commit any kind of crimes. But what it does is allowing me to have a higher chance that if I'm there, I can prevent, you know what I'm saying, them from doing something because I have a relationship with them. So again, HYPE is all about building that relationship, and where I have to go down, I'm going to say pain road, well, not memory road, but pain road, and whatever pain that I can dig out of myself to let them know that I've been there and I've done that, you know what I'm saying, and that you can make it, I'm going to use that. And I don't have a problem. Like I said, a lot of times when we're working with these young people, we don't feel the necessary, we don't look at it as a life and death situation. So if we do not look at it as a life and death situation, we're picking and choosing what we want to use to help that person. Me, I'm willing to lay my life down, because if I don't, I remember I remember living across the street from a young man that was in a gang. And at that time, I had a young son at that time, and I'm saying to myself, this is a life and death situation, period. Because if I don't get the gun out his hand and he lives directly across from me, what's to keep somebody from, him having conflict with somebody and him shooting? My house is right here, him shooting, son, by accident, because he
Right.
just, letting off shots, and I happen to live across the street. So I'm using whatever it is that I got to be effective. So again, I'm completely, turning their lives around, because what I'm hoping for at some point, in my career is to get a residential, because part of the problem is at home,
Right.
and our kids are being traumatized on a regular basis, and all they're doing, from smoking to joining a gang to even shooting each other and getting killed, all they're doing is really trying to protect, they're trying to keep themselves from getting hurt, and they're going about it in a negative way. But, they don't want, a lot of it stems from trauma, unaddressed trauma. I myself, was molested as a child. Again, unaddressed trauma that leads a young person to having that I don't give a F attitude. You put the mask on, you put guns on, and you're never going to let anybody hurt you again. And it doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. All you're trying to do is protect yourself, because no one else did.
Hurt people, hurt others, try not
Yes.
to be hurt again. So if
Yes.
I can hurt another person before they hurt me, then I have that sense of fulfillment, but it's just in a negative way.
Right.
I really do understand that. Now, this is moving forward talk. So I do have to ask, what is your plan moving forward from where you are?
Well, I'm still currently feet to the ground on every day. I have, again, my work is a way of life. I'm constantly still trying to build those relationships, still trying to let them know that the way to make it out is to establish principles and morals.
Mm-hmm.
The way to know that, you have overcome some things, and you could save somebody's life by letting them know what it is that you've done to get out of that. But you have to feel safe enough and accept the fact that life is not fair, because again, our kids are operating victim standpoint. They're operating because, my dad wasn't there, or my mom wasn't there, or whatever trauma has happened from them is what they're operating from. So if we can establish a relationship and get them to say, hey, all right, life is not fair, but it's also not fair for me to walk around and kill people or get myself killed as well. And again, that takes a community type of effort. So what I do, again, I do the cookouts in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
I do dinners in the wintertime. And lately, what I've been doing is I light candles. We had 3 homicides in probably like 3 days. And normally people light candles after the fact. So from that point on, I've been lighting candles pretty much in the same areas in an attempt to bring some positivity.
Right.
I want to be proactive instead of reactive. And I'm out there, when it's cold out, when it's raining out, when it's, late night, I'm out there just as a symbol. And the candles represents peace, love, life, light, unity, and nonviolence. So I'm lighting candles, not because someone has passed away, and someone will ask me, like, who passed away? And I'll be like, no one. These candles are to prevent someone from passing away. This is a positive thing, opposed to us, gathering because we weren't there to prevent it. Now I'm trying to prevent it from happening. So I just continue to do things that will allow me to build the necessary relationship that's going to get to the why, and I will die trying, because again, it's a life and death situation, and if I don't give it my all, then I can't expect, you know what I'm saying, anything from that.
That is absolutely a wonderful job that you are doing. And thank you very much for the work you're doing within your community to help save our young people's lives. Sometimes they can't and they won't get it from home, depending on the home environment. But if at
Exactly.
least one person within each community will work tirelessly to help them find their way, identify who they are, do not live anymore by the excuses of what they didn't have, of who weren't there for them, but now identify who they are, who they want to become, and work tirelessly to help them become that person. It is worth all the effort.
It is. I view all kids as if they were my own. So whatever I'm going to save mine, I'm going to do to save yours. And I, you know what I'm saying? And I put that out there because I would want someone to do that, you know what I'm saying, for mine as well. And that's the only way. If we're selective, oh, well, that kid is dangerous or that kid is this, then, you know, you're basically giving them the power, you know, and you're allowing them to continue to, you know what I'm saying, hurt themselves and other people. And I'm trying to, again, and right now, again, I'm reading Hartford right now, but, you know, I will go anywhere in the U.S. and beyond to do the same thing because, again, it's different levels to this. And we have to, I have a T-shirt that says, action speaks louder than words. There is no love without sacrifice, that we have to lead by an example. That's my blueprint. That's my blueprint. That's what I live and die by right there.
Thank you very much. And I know the good work you're doing, there will be success, a success story behind it each day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your story, and I hope that someone's life will be changed by watching this video. Thank you.
I hope so too.
So very much.